Ladies and machine men, this one has been a long time coming. If there is one question every Getter Robo fan has wondered at least once in their lives, then it has to be, so what was the deal with that whole Getter Dragon thing anyway? The enigmatic circumstances behind the Getter Dragon represent what is arguably the greatest mystery in the entire Getter Robo saga. For me, it's always been akin to a puzzle, with its various pieces scattered all across the different installments of Getter Robo. Today, I'm going to try and put all those different pieces together as coherently as my brain allows me to. Join me as I attempt to unravel the fate of the Getter Dragon, as well as the elusive existence of the Shin Getter Robo G. You better grab your tomahawks and stay tuned, because this is one episode you're not gonna wanna miss. Let us begin by laying down all the pieces we're going to work with. The three major appearances of the Getter Dragon across the Getter Robo saga are in Getter Robo G, Shin Getter Robo, and the Getter Robo Art manga respectively. I'm going to draw all of my conclusions from the events we have seen across these three particular interpretations. The Getter Robo G manga is crucial for marking the introduction of the Getter Dragon, as well as laying the foundation for all the events to come. If you did your homework, you should already be aware of this, but the Getter Dragon is the primary form of the Getter Robo G. This particular Getter machine stands as the direct successor of the original Getter Robo, and it was the primary weapon used by the Getter team in the war against the Hyakki Empire. Several decades after the Getter Robo G manga concluded, Ken Ishikawa resumed the story of the Getter Robo saga with the next installment titled Getter Robo Go. I'm sure you can already tell, but I'm going to be saying Getter Robo a lot throughout the duration of this video. Anyway, it was this moment in time that began to spark a certain mystique that would come to surround the Getter Robo G, and by extension the Getter Dragon over the years. You see, the Getter Robo G did not make a single appearance in the entirety of the Getter Robo Go manga. No character even mentioned it once in passing or anything. It was as if the whole thing just went up and vanished into thin air. If you told me it was all a dream, I would have believed you, at least up until the release of the Shin Getter Robo manga in the year 1997. Following the resounding success of Getter Robo Go, Ken Ishikawa would go on to release a story that would bridge the gap between Getter Robo G and Getter Robo Go once and for all, as well as introduce elements that would forever alter the trajectory of the Getter Robo saga as we know it. The Shin Getter Robo manga would cement the cosmic horror elements that the Getter saga became famous for, but it would also suspiciously see the return of the forgotten Getter Robo G. What makes it so suspicious, you ask? Fret not, as we'll get to that at the appropriate time. It is in the pages of the Shin Getter Robo manga that we get to see what led to the absence of the Getter Robo G from the events of the Getter Robo Go manga. Even if the Dinosaur Empire and the Hyakki Empire have been defeated, the Saotome Research Institute has no time to rest. The Getter team is still at war, but this time against the alien invaders from the future known as the Andromeda country. For some reason, these future invaders want to destroy the Getter Robo G at all costs. Why the Getter Robo G in particular, you ask? It will make sense later. For now, we must focus on the events at hand. In a tragic twist of fate, Benkei Kuruma ends up in a similar position to Musashi Tomoe before him, having to pilot the Getter Robo G all by himself in one desperate attempt to fend off the invaders and give the Saotome Research Institute the upper hand in this war. As his inevitable doom draws ever closer, Benkei is left with no choice but to pilot the Getter Robo G, now in its Getter Dragon form, all the way to the center of the Earth. His noble sacrifice was all but in vain, as it led the Getter Dragon to unleash a potpourri of Getter rays right from the center of the Earth, which was just enough to fend off the alien invaders. This might have been enough to take care of the aliens, but the question still remains, what the hell just happened? Bear with me for a moment. As it turns out, the moment it reached the center of the Earth, the Getter Dragon became enveloped in a cocoon of Getter rays, and it supposedly entered a state of hibernation. Think of it as a larva that is getting ready to become a butterfly, except the Getter Dragon is getting ready to become moving on. Normally, one would assume that this is where the involvement of the Getter Dragon in the Getter Robo saga comes to a full stop, right? Oh no, my boy. This is where it is just beginning. From this point onward, the Getter Dragon would be tied to every single major event that occurs in the Getter Robo saga. Before we crack open that can of worms, let us go over some other relevant appearances of the Getter Dragon across the Shin Getter Robo manga. There is one chapter where Ryoma has a vision of the future. In his vision, he encounters a machine that is called the Saint Getter Dragon. Could this be the evolution of the Getter Dragon? That we cannot say for certain. After that, during the last few pages of the Shin Robo manga, we get a glimpse at what seems to be the Getter Dragon once again, only this time it looks as if it is in the very early stages of evolution, with the other two Getter machines melted into it. The long-awaited return of the Getter Robo G in the Shin Robo manga was met with a lot of fanfare, but it also gave birth to a lot of speculation. People soon began theorizing what the evolution of the Getter Dragon would look like, as well as its relation to the Getter Emperor. The Getter Robo G in its evolved state would be commonly referred to as the Shin Robo G, and it would make numerous appearances outside the manga over the years. Some of its most notable appearances include the Getter Robo Daikesen PlayStation 1 game, the Getter Robo Armageddon OVA series, and the various Super Robot Wars games. Each one of these appearances features a different interpretation of what the Shin Robo G would look like. It really is up to you whether you want to consider any of these interpretations canon, especially since adaptations such as Getter Robo Armageddon are known to take place in alternate timelines from the original Getter Robo saga. Even then, I have to admit, the Shin Getter Dragon we see in Armageddon, the one that turned itself into an actual mechanical dragon, looks extremely cool. That's some major Demon Lord Dante vibes right there. Anyway, it is about time we move to the last piece of the puzzle I'm going to showcase, which would be, of course, the Getter Robo Arc manga. I have covered the events of the Arc manga in more detail in some of my other videos, so for the sake of not repeating myself, I'm just going to say that the alien invaders of the Andromeda country are back, and this time they are hellbent on making sure the Getter Dragon stays dead for good. Not only that, but we get another mention of the Getter Dragon from Hayato Jin, which gives us the concrete confirmation that the Getter Dragon has indeed been in a state of constant evolution while buried underground in that cocoon of Getter rays. Following that, it isn't until the very last pages of the Getter Robo Arc manga that you get a glimpse of what the evolved Getter Dragon looks like. Takuma Nagare and Kamui Sho are in the midst of a life or death showdown. Just when it seems as if everything is about to conclude, a large shadowy figure shows up at the scene of the battle. This is the final evolution of the Getter Dragon. That should just about cover all the Getter Dragon appearances across the Getter Robo saga. Now that we have all the pieces into place, it's time to put them together and see if we can make any sense of this whole timeline. It should go without saying that we are now entering pure speculation territory. You shouldn't hold my predictions at face value, well, unless they come true, in which case you should hail me as Nostradamus too, baby. You see, I don't believe that it was a coincidence that the Getter Dragon just so happened to become relevant again in the same manga the Getter Emperor was introduced. I'm convinced that Ken Ishikawa meant for them to be one and the same entity, and there is a plethora of evidence that would point anyone towards that conclusion. Let's get the obvious out of the way. Why would the Andromeda country be so vehement on destroying the Getter Dragon, so much so that it launches two different assaults on the South Dome Research Institute at two different points in time, if it wasn't somehow related to the Getter Emperor? We already know the motivation of the Andromeda country is figuring out a way to exterminate the Getter Emperor before he gets a chance to be born. It's this fact that leads me to believe that, after decades of laying dormant deep beneath the earth, the Getter Dragon has absorbed so many Getter rays that it evolved into the Getter Emperor. I mentioned that at the end of the Getter Robo Arc manga, we witness what is believed to be the Shin Getter Dragon showing up during the fight between Takuma and Kamui. That very much begs the question of who is even piloting it? Is it Hayato, Baku, perhaps even Benkei's ghost? All of these options seem just a little bit far-fetched. There is, however, one Getter machine in the entirety of the Getter Robo saga that is capable of piloting itself, and it is none other than the Getter Emperor. Still not convinced? In this case, let us move on to the final piece of evidence I'm going to present in this video. This one is quite obvious and it could potentially be debunked, but still, hear me out for a second. The Getter Emperor is the only Getter machine in the entire Getter Robo saga whose secondary and tertiary forms have never been shown in any piece of Getter Robo media. We don't even know if the Getter Emperor is capable of combining at all. Sure, we've seen two giant spaceships resembling a secondary and tertiary Getter form accompany the Getter Emperor before, but they seem to exist as separate entities from the Getter Emperor itself. Why is that? And how does it relate to the Getter Dragon at all? This has been on my mind ever since I saw the Getter Emperor make its debut in the manga, and I believe I have finally come up with a plausible explanation for it. Alright, so in the Shin Robo manga, it was established that the Robo G got buried underground while in the form of the Dragon. That fact leads me to believe that the Dragon was the only form that was capable of absorbing the rays and evolving into the Emperor. Perhaps the Liger and the Poseidon have managed to evolve as well, but to a much lesser extent than the Dragon, which is why they are unable to combine with the Emperor and can only exist as spaceships that orbit around it. Of course, this might be a bit of a stretch since we don't really know the Shin Dragon's capabilities, or whether it is able to combine or not, but then again, all of this could just be complete nonsense, and in reality, the Shin Robo absorbed the planet Mars after landing on it at the end of Robo Go, which caused it to evolve into the Emperor. At the end of the day, this is all just speculation, and the Emperor could be the final evolution of any machine we've seen throughout the Robo saga. I'm still inclined to believe that it might be the Dragon, but I am also extremely curious to know what all of you think. Please leave all your theories, fancanon and fanfiction over in the comment section. That brings us to the end of the Dragon's legend, or at the very least, everything we know about it so far. What do you guys think? To me, it always seemed as if the Robo G was something the executives over at Toei forced upon Ken Ishikawa for merchandising purposes, and he didn't feel as attached to it as some of the other machines. Hence he never brought it up in the Robo Go manga. However, I do think it is extremely commendable how he took what you could arguably call a limitation placed on him by outside factors and expanded upon it so much to the point where he turned it into one of the most interesting things to have ever graced the Robo saga. If you enjoyed my frenzied rambles on the Dragon, then you might want to know that I have a whole bunch of other videos just like this one as part of a week-long special I'm doing called the Robo Arc Week. You can find all the videos over on my channel as well as in a playlist down in the description. That's all of me for now. I'll see you next time.
Wait, what if all my theories were wrong? There was one element I did not take into account. This one man is the key to everything. Who is this mysterious man? He is... Moe.